Hello, and welcome to Unshakable with Human Design. I'm your host, Nicole Leno, and we're here for our final episode in our type series. That one quick, right? This was a fast one. It's only 5 episodes, 5 types, 5 episodes, quick and dirty, and especially on this show where we do 2 episodes a week, we didn't even get through a whole month. But I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope you loved the deep dive into each of the types. The reason that we started this series and why I think type is important is it's the start of everything. This is our intro into human design, but it also holds so much more richness than I think a lot of us give it credit for and give it time and respect for. So type tells you how you operate correctly. It gives you your strategy. It gives you your signature. It gives you your not self theme. It helps you become acutely aware of your alignment and your misalignment in a very specific way. So I always say it's difficult, when we say something about like self-awareness, you have to be self-aware. Self-aware of what? I think it takes a lifetime to really say like what's important for me to be aware of. And what I think one of the values of human design is that it can help you understand very quickly what are the things that you need to be aware of. You specifically. I have to be aware of different things than my husband does as a self-projected projector. I have to be aware of different things than my best friend growing up who's a reflector. She has a different life experience. I have a different life experience. And there's also, I think we can also get very caught up in how things should be. I should be like this. I hear so often, I've done, hundreds of readings at this point, and almost every single one, people tell me how seen they feel and how validated they feel with the life that they've had or the experiences they've had, that they don't feel like it's them anymore, that something's wrong with them, that something should have been different or they should have been more like somebody else. They're like, oh, that's why it's been like this. I'm not crazy, is I think the big headline. And no, you're not. So I wanted to take this time to go through, give each type its due and give it its own episode. We're at the last one now. We did manifestors, then we did manifesting generators, projectors, and now here we are at the beautiful reflectors. Okay. So before we get started, I do want to call out, we have a very cool thing that we put together if you're into human design and business and how these two things come together so that you can have an aligned and profitable business. So not just aligned where it feels good, because it can't feel good if it isn't making money unless you are independently wealthy and you don't care. But most of us are not. We need to be profitable. And for that, you need some other tools. For that, you're going to need probably a mix of proven business strategies, marketing strategies, and then alignment to help you, one, master yourself, master your magnetism, know what people come to you for, really get focused on what makes you you and how you operate best. Because if you can remove resistance, everything gets easier. When it gets easier, you do more of it. You are able to be more potent in everything that you do. So you can get greater results from all of the effort that you take. Human design is a beautiful window into that. But then we also have the strategic end of things where we need to know how to create an offer that will sell. We need to know how to put it out there. We need to know how can we not be on social media 24/7 and feel like every dollar is dependent on us being live on some social media platform. How do we do all of this? We take you through all of it in the Aligned and Profitable with HD podcast. So if you want that, all you have to do to get it is DM me the words secret podcast on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Leno Official. Or if you want to grab it at our website, you can go to nicoleleno.com/secret podcast and you can get all the details there. We'll also have it in the show notes for you. Okay. So let's do it. Let's dive into our last type, the reflectors, the most mysterious and rare. And I think that they're mysterious for a number of reasons. One, there's so few of them, so it's not like you're surrounded by them. They're 1% of the population. So very, very few of them. But there are, there's billions of people on Earth. So there are lots of them. They're just fewer and further between than the other types. So they're a little mysterious to us. They're mysterious also because of the way that they are. They're so different. They're so different than us. And I don't mean that. I'm going to go back to something that I said in the previous episodes about this. This isn't about labels. This isn't about like, oh, reflectors are weird. Reflectors, no, they have a different experience. And I think validating that experience helps them sink into it, feel like everything that they're doing is right versus everything that they're doing is wrong, or they should be a different way. And I think that they have many gifts that I think, this whole series has really been about getting really comfortable with your gifts so you're not taking them for granted. And I think reflectors can really take theirs for granted because what they are they're these great observers. Because we talked about the aura for each one. Oh, let me tell you how you become a reflector. It's super simple. There's no centers defined in your chart. If you are a reflector, you'll look at your chart and all 9 centers will be white. There will be no channels. And you will be what we call a lunar being, not a solar being like the rest of us. So this is what makes you different. You get your energy literally from different places than we do. You operate more under the lunar cycle than you do under the solar influence that the rest of us do. It doesn't mean that the sun doesn't have its effect on you. Your conscious sun still plays a huge role in your life. But the way that you move, you're going to change. Your chart gets activated based on the moon's movements, is how you're probably going to get the most stability in your life. The moon moves in a predictable pattern. So that's the only predictable thing in a reflector's life as far as the energy is concerned. So they're naturally kind of more fluid in nature because of all of that openness. Again, don't let the word fluid, you put like a label or some sort of idea on top of that. Every single thing about design, I'm speaking about tendencies, and I'm speaking in generalities based on the types. But there's always a unique human being on top of the chart. So there's always room for that. So I always go out of my way to say that because I think some people can be like, no, I'm not like that. And there can be a little bit of defensiveness, or they think, no, that's not true for me. So, and they can almost take it like, I don't want to say offense, but like they're explaining it. And it's like, no, you are a unique and an individual person. These are just some tendencies of a particular type. So reflectors can tend to be fluid, meaning changeable. And where they can sometimes get stuck is feeling like they shouldn't be changeable, that they should be one thing, that they should commit to something. Their aura is very different. So we talked about the auras for each type. And the aura for a reflector is what we call a sampling aura. It's actually much more resilient to conditioning by other people than a projector who's literally in the energy of everybody else. That's not how the reflector energy works. Their aura works in this, like, it's sort of like this, it looks a little crazy when you see like pictures of it, when you see like drawings of what it would look like. It's out there sort of like sampling everything. It's beyond their body, sort of sampling everything in the atmosphere, in the group, in the community. There's a quiet wisdom that comes with this. They tend to know more about life than they do about necessarily the specific individuals. Their energy, their aura isn't doing what a projector's does, which is go into a person. Their aura is picking things up on more of a collective group nature. They're picking up on the bigger picture. They see the bigger picture of like life. That's what their genius is. That is what their value is. And a lot of times they will discount it. Because who am I to say that I know something about these big, big things? So there are people, I think that the the act of and the life of being a reflector can be a little disorienting at times because you are taking in a lot about everyone, about everything, and you're pulling it in. So when you try to have like a regimented or, finely laid out life, that can feel a little bit hard. Usually reflectors aren't giving themselves enough time by themselves because the challenge is for them to just be, not be anything specific, because that will change. To give themselves permission to change and to give themselves permission to share their perceptions of what they're picking up about everyone. So, they just have to share and not worry about how those perceptions will be received. And they have to be open to their perceptions maybe changing over time as well as things change. Again, I think it can be the only certainty in a reflector's life is the uncertainty. So I think that they have the potential to be really wise and sort of masters of that, of living and sort of riding through life. They are generally very helpful, insightful, highly empathic people when they are aligned. And they can be controlling, withdrawn, and kind of critical when they're not. So they tend to feel like when they overgive, that open G center is really everything. That open G center is pulling them into all these different environments. And people usually like to be around reflectors because they reflect back a lot of who we are through that open G center. And we like to see ourselves. We like to see a nice reflection of us. But that can be really draining for them. So we want them to be everywhere. And they're like, I wish I could just be by myself. I want to go like hug a tree and be alone. These are people that connect very deeply with animals and nature. And they can really feel like they want to make a difference in the world because they can sense the difference that's needed. That can feel big sometimes to them. And if you're a reflector listening to this, then I encourage you to work on owning the bigness of that. And you wouldn't have been given this gift if it wasn't meant to be used. So can you start to become comfortable with the fact that you might be here for big things? And this doesn't necessarily mean big publicly, but you might be here to make a really, really significant impact. And you can't do that unless you're telling people what you feel. Because I always say that it's important for reflectors to stop thinking about what they feel and instead tune into, or stop thinking about how they feel and tune into what they feel. I got it reversed there for a second. So when they're focused on how they feel, I don't feel good, I feel, and instead focus on can you tune into what it is that they are feeling. So when you feel bad as a reflector, what's really underneath that? What are you feeling underneath the bad feeling? Underneath, if you feel sick, can you tune into that a little bit more? They're highly intuitive beings. And a lot of them would not necessarily call themselves a psychic or an intuitive, like they wouldn't identify with that. Because what they're doing is, I think that these are, there's that clairsentience. There is that I just know things. I just sense things. They're sensing something deeper, something bigger. They're sensing what's needed. They're sensing what's not needed. They're sensing a direction. They can be conditioned, but they're conditioned more by the group than by the individual. So they can be, I think a reflector could be in a cult kind of thing, like there can be that type of thing because they can really start to identify with the group's stuff. They could probably be seen as a leader in that space. I'm not saying that reflectors are cult leaders or anything like that. But do you see what I mean about being pulled by the group? Being pulled by the community or the larger energy versus the individual's energy. One person is not going to condition a reflector as much as the community that they are around. And the way to not be conditioned is to be aware, is to spend time by yourself, is to really pay attention to what you are feeling and the quality of it. And what are you really perceiving under all of that? My favorite example, you probably, if you listen to the show a lot, you've maybe heard me say this before, but my favorite example of a reflector is Margaret Atwood, who wrote The Handmaid's Tale. This is something where it's not one person that she was around that influenced that story. It is a systemic, collective problem that she sensed with the way that women are treated and have been treated. And she had a vision for where this was going. Not a good one. I don't like her vision, but I also don't see necessarily that she was wrong, unfortunately. It's extreme. But I think what she picked up on and the themes that are there and the sentiments that are there are very much real. She wrote books about them. So this is someone, when we say like reflectors, oh, the common misconception, oh, they have no energy. They have energy. It's just not sustainable. They're going to need to take breaks. They're going to probably need to work on their own time. I actually think, I think we're all meant to be creative. Nobody's meant to be producing 100% of the time. And that's unfortunately the world that we've built. So somebody like a Margaret Atwood, who kind of made her own schedule around her books, where she was creative and she had something to say. And if she didn't, she wasn't writing, although she was quite prolific. But she had I'm guessing she didn't wake up every single day and write all day long. Maybe she had her writing periods. But she was given that freedom to say what she needed to say, to ring the alarm bell. That's what reflectors do. They're also known as the canary in the coal mine. Canaries were used by miners. When they would go down into the mines, they would bring canaries with them because canaries are extra sensitive to toxic gases that could kill you. And they were so sensitive that the canary would pass out before it became too much for the people down there. So if the canary passed out, the miners still had time to get out before they were poisoned. So I also think it's important. They took the canaries out with them. They saved the canaries. They didn't leave them down there because the canaries weren't dead, but they would pass out. And this is kind of like a reflector. They're ultra sensitive to things that the rest of us are too busy with other things to perceive, or just not sensitive enough frequency-wise. They're picking up on a frequency. They're picking up on these deeper themes that are more widespread than probably the rest of us are able to pay attention to or able to pick up on. So they are that canary. So they get sick. Their body starts to feel these things. They can get very upset. They can really take things to heart. They can really feel overwhelmed by this stuff sometimes. That's the canary. But like I said, if they're not just like the way that they can get caught up in this and why design is so helpful is they might just think that they're somebody who can't handle things, that they're too sensitive. If you don't know you're a reflector, you might have been made to think that you were just overly sensitive and dramatic. But the truth is that you're highly intuitive and sensitive. That's a very different thing. Now, if you're the canary in the coal mine, now you've passed out. It's what am I feeling that made me have such a reaction? What do I need to say to everyone around so they have enough time to get out of the mind before it affects them too? How can we change things? That's the role of the reflector, and it's a beautiful role. But I think that it's, I don't mean to make it sound like it's easy. Because they're not going to be producing. They're not going to be showing up all the time. They're not going to want to. So freedom is really important for the reflector. If you're a reflector, are you giving yourself enough flexibility in your life? to be what you need to be today, and then allowing yourself to be what you need to be tomorrow? Are you noticing what you're feeling when you're coming in contact with things? Are you noticing, what's the quality of what I'm picking up? Are you honoring the fact that you are intuitive, or are you batting it away like that's for other people? There's a lot of wisdom in reflectors. They can sense things that the rest of us can't. So if that's you, can you own that a little bit more every day and give yourself the freedom to kind of move through this life, being whoever you need to be, whatever is coming to you at that time, and just taking notice of what's happening underneath. What's driving these changes? What's making you feel that way? Get curious about yourself. I think journaling is a wonderful exercise for everybody, certainly for reflectors, because you really will have a lot to reflect on if you're really paying attention to how you feel every day and what those feelings, what's really underneath them. All right. I hope you loved this. I hope you loved the series. DM me on Instagram. Let me know what you thought about it. And if you want the secret podcast, all you have to do to get it is DM me the words secret podcast. I'm at Nicole Lano Official. If you don't follow me already, please do. Come over, say hi. And if you want to get it on the website, you could do that. You can get it at NicoleLano.com/secret podcast, and you can grab it right there. We'll have it all linked up in the show notes for you. I hope to see you on Instagram. I hope to hear about the secret podcast, what you thought about it. I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. We'll be back with another episode in the next one. It won't be on type, it'll be on something else, but I hope to see you then. And remember, in order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. So thanks for letting us help you become unshakable with human design. We'll see you next time.